Hello everyone, welcome to Time for a New Watch. I'm Jeff and today we're looking at the Poljot Amphibian. There are many different variations of this watch. Some of them there's like tons of different variations of the dial in terms of like design, the markers, and even lume being applied and not applied, and lume just plain not being lume, as is the case here, which I'll get to. There are also, there's like domestic versions and export versions. There are variations in the case itself. There's just a ton of variations in these, so sometimes it can be hard to tell if you've got a Franken-watch or not. But before I get into any of that, I will introduce the watch properly. It is a Poljot Amphibian, 23 jewels. This one is a domestic market version made probably sometime around the late 70s, or let's just say 70s because I'm not totally sure. It is made by the Poljot, the first Moscow watch factory in the former Soviet Union. So if you have English letters on your dial and probably case back as well, you have an export version that was made for export to not the Soviet Union. And I have this one written in Cyrillic, which is for the Soviet market. So this one is someone probably picked it up in the Soviet Union originally. So, getting down to some of the details about the watch, the case width here is, disclaimer, I actually measured this with my phone, like an app on my phone. I tried as best I could to confirm online, and yeah, most of my measurements seem accurate-ish. So I got and confirmed online that the case width is actually 37 millimeters, which sounds like it's really small, but it doesn't. Like, I have a Grand Seiko that's 37 millimeters, but this wears bigger than the Grand Seiko, and it definitely does not feel like 37 millimeters wide. And that's probably because the case is just flat right here. There's no angles going outward like my Seiko, like a lot of my Seikos have. It's just a flat case, 37 millimeters. So it feels like it's closer to like 39 or 40 when I'm holding it or wearing it or whatever. Anyway, the height is about 44 millimeters. I would say 44, 45. The thickness is, I'd say, around 13 millimeters. I got closer to 12 on my phone, but that was terrible, and I compared it to some other watches, and I would say it's more around 13 millimeters. And lastly, the lug width is 18 millimeters, so this does take 18 millimeter straps. Inside, we have a 23 jewel movement, which is the 2616.2H, stamped with SU for Soviet Union. This of course being the 23 jewel version. There is also a 30 jewel version, and I could not find which movement that has in it, and I don't have one, so I'll stick to more facts about this watch. I think these were rated to 10 atmospheres. There's not a screw down crown. The case back is kind of vanilla-ish if you take a look. It's I might be able to guess what that says. Maybe it says, no idea actually. I'm not even going to try to guess what it says. I was going to guess automatic, but I don't really know. It's just got a very simple design on the back. There are some that are even more vanilla that just have a serial number, and there are some that are super fancy with like a dolphin and things like that. The 30 jewel version has like a mermaid riding a dolphin. It's pretty cool, but those versions are also more expensive. The crown is pretty substantial on this. It is, however, just chrome-plated brass. So if these, a lot of these are old, they've been used a lot. The movement is automatic, but it's also hand winding and not hacking. In fact, let's get that going. It's not a high beat movement or anything. If you look at how it's moving here, it's not like, it's not going to move around like a Swiss Etta or whatever. It moves much more like a vintage 60s watch or something like that. So let's see here. The hands here, most of the Amphibia versions or the Poljot Amphibians have these hands. There are some exceptions. There are tons of exceptions in the dial, a few exceptions in the bezel, a few exceptions with the case, but this is a pretty average example, except that you can see the loom on my dial is super neatly done, and that is not the case for a lot of them. You can find these with loom on the numbers, without loom on the numbers, without loom on the dial, with loom on the dial, very messily done, kind of neatly done. It's really kind of a grab bag if you're looking at these. Now mine is kind of weird because I call it loom, but that is not actually loom on the dial. That is just paint. It's painted green in the same fashion they would have painted loom on the dial. Same with the hands. The hands, I don't know if you can see, there's like a split in the paint down the center because of the minute hand, because that is paint, not loom, which I thought was so weird. I was almost certain I had like a fake dial or something, because why paint? But apparently there are versions with painted loom and not painted loom. I keep using the word loom just because it's on a watch dial. It is just, the indices are just painted. Paint, 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 not loom on mine. Really weird. But yeah, even if it did have loom, it's not going to glow at this point. The watch is nearly, 40 years old, so I also wouldn't trust it to be watertight, as with any unserviced, unconfirmed vintage watch. Now, you can see pretty well with the lights and everything that the dial is actually a beautiful black sunburst. I was actually really surprised at this because the image I had in my head of these was just, it was really, really like badly done loom and everything. And I just thought that the dial was going to be super ratty and it was going to look bad. And that's just what I thought I was going to get when I opened the box. But I opened it up and it's a beautiful watch. The bezel here, it's bi-directional. So you see it goes both ways. It's kind of a tension bezel, I'm sure. It's really old. I don't even want to try to take it off. I'm afraid that the wire inside may even be rusted, because sometimes it's really hard to turn and then sometimes it's way too easy to turn. Right now it's erring on the hard side, which it's better for me because it's not going to like slide around and move out of its the normal placement here. So I think that is about all I can tell you about these. I'm not going to open it up and show you the movement or anything. But this was they're nice vintage watches, and you can get them for pretty cheap. I personally got lucky picking this one up for about $88, and most of them you can pick up for between $100 and $200. I mean, if this one, I would expect it to go for maybe lower than $150, maybe $130, $140. I would say is probably a fair price for this one, maybe even $120. I guess I should mention the glass here. It is, of course, acrylic. It's nothing fancy. These were very utilitarian. Let's get a comparison with a 40 millimeter Oris Diver 65. I always use this one because, it's 40 millimeters. So let me get them about on the same level here so that we can Take a good look there. So as you can see, like, it does not look super small, even next to the Oris. I'm trying to make sure they're exactly on the same level here. So, and it doesn't wear that small either. Like, it looks like it's thicker than the Oris, but the Oris has a thick crystal that makes it about the same thickness as the Poljot. Because, oops, I just dropped a pen. That's cool. It wasn't a watch, don't worry. So, I'm gonna give you a quick wrist shot too, why not? The thickest part of the Poljot is, of course, Poljot. That one is the bezel, so that sticks up more than the crystal on the Diver 65 on the Oris. So as you can see, this actually does not wear all that small for a 37mm watch. I think it wears actually really, really well. One other thing about the movement, the date is not quick set. In fact, if you've never seen this before, I'm going to show you how to change the date real quick. So let me zoom back in here. I usually end with the wrist shot, but I just realized this is probably something people would want to know. So check it out. It's the 13th, yeah? Okay, great. That was 10 a.m. Let's go all the way to p.m. All right, so here we are approaching midnight. And okay, so this is interesting. This actually worked last time I was using this watch. There it goes. That was weird. I'm not going to dissect it. It just worked though. So I'm going back past 2 a.m., right? Now I am going back to around 8. Well, that was 7, but you know. So now go back past it and it changes again. So I went past 1 that time. Watch the date wheel here. Okay, I think I just saw it kind of click and move there. So then you advance it again, and I didn't do it quite right that time. But as you can see, you have to go back and forth like that to set the date. I was trying to get the least amount of movement I could to set the date correctly, but yeah, I short-armed it. So that's pretty much how you're going to be setting the date on these. It's not too exciting, and it's honestly, it's super tedious, but it's still a pretty cool watch. Anyway, this has been time for a new watch. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm just starting the process of closing on a house, so the watches may be a little bit cheaper and kind of far between in the future, but I will get whatever I can to you. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.